Today we have three stories. The first story's headline is Grant's Narrow Escape. It says, General Grant in a recent conversation said, "The darkest day of my life was the day I heard of Lincoln's assassination. I did not know what it meant. Here was the rebellion put down in the field and starting up again in the gutters. We had fought it as a war, now we had to fight it as assassination. Lincoln was killed on the evening of the 14th of April. I was busy sending out orders to stop recruiting the army. Lincoln had promised to go to the theater and wanted me to go with him. While I was with the president, a note came from Mrs. Grant saying that she must leave Washington that night. She wanted to go to Burlington to see her children. Some incident of a trifling nature had made her resolve to leave that evening. I was glad to have it so, as I did not want to go to the theater. So I made my excuses to Lincoln, and at the proper hour we started for the train. As we were driving along Pennsylvania Avenue, a horseman drove past on a gallop and back again around our carriage, looking into it. Mrs. Grant said, "There is the man who sat near us at lunch today with some other men and tried to overhear our conversation. He was so rude that we left the dining room. Here he is now riding after us. I thought it was only a curiosity, but learned afterwards that the horseman was Booth. It seemed that I was to be attacked, and Mrs. Grant's son resolved to leave changed the plan. A few days after, I received an anonymous letter from a man saying that he had been detailed to kill me, that he rode on my train as far as Havre de Grace, and as my car was locked, he failed to get in. He thanked God that he had failed. I remember the conductor locked our car, but how true the letter was, I cannot say. I learned of the assassination as I was passing through Philadelphia. I turned around, took a special train, and came on to Washington. It was the gloomiest day of my life." This article was originally reported by the Washington correspondents for the Boston Traveler. The second story has the headline, Tom Paine's Grave. The subheadline says, "The part that a Presbyterian elder has had in protecting it." It says, in 1839, a straight shaft of granite was erected in Westchester County to mark the final resting place of Tom Paine, the atheist and patriot who was buried on the farm near New Rochelle, where he had passed the later years of his life. This monument was in time much defaced by vandals and relic hunters. 2 years ago, it was taken down, the broken corners rounded, the scars effaced, and the inscriptions recut. Since then, rumor has stated that it has been again defaced, but a visit to the spot yesterday showed that this is untrue. The monument stands on the right-hand side of the road after leaving New Rochelle, in the center of a plot of ground 20 feet square, protected on the sides and back by stone walls 3 feet high, and on the road front by an iron railing. It is in excellent order. The plot on which the shaft was erected is surrounded by the property of the Lester family. In the handsome house 100 yards further up the road, Mr. Simeon Lester lives. He was originally a farmer, but has long since retired from active work. He is now 87 years of age, although his ruddy cheeks, dark hair, scarcely touched with gray, and firm step would make him look not over 65. He said yesterday to a reporter, "I came here to reside in 1825, and from then on heard many remarkable stories of Paine from those who had known him intimately. After a while, I became an elder in the Presbyterian church here. For this reason, I suppose, Mr. Paine's admirers, who knew that he was buried near my property, have accused me of being instrumental in the past vandalism. This is not true. I seldom speak of Paine, for the man is dead, and I let his memory rest. But for many years past, I have been beset by denunciatory letters from all parts of the country. I have even received letters from England of the same tenor. The truth is that it was I who cleared off the brush which had overgrown the plot, and with my own hands drove the 4 stakes in the ground 20 feet east of the monument, which marked the exact spot where lies Tom Paine's ashes. The story that the monument had been egged recently is untrue. I have passed the spot several times a day all my life, and never saw an egg mark on it. The only time it was defaced in my memory was about 10 years ago, when some mischievous boys bespattered it with mud. As soon as we heard of this, my wife took 2 servants with her and had the stones scrubbed clean." This article originally came from the New York Herald. The third story's headline is Bones of the Prison Ship Martyrs. It says, "An excavation for a new sewer is in progress in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, the course of which lies directly through the graves of the martyrs who died in the British prison ship in the Revolutionary War. A large number of bones have been thrown up by the workmen in the last 2 weeks, enough of them found to fill 8 boxes. The bones are broken and disjointed, but the skulls are preserved entire and number more than 100. No traces of clothing or even of buttons have been discovered among the remains. The prison ships, some half dozen in all, were anchored off the mouth of the Wallabout. They were dismantled and lay there mere hulks, their holds crowded to suffocation with prisoners, most of them being seamen from American privateers, against whom the British were especially bitter. The Whitby and the Jersey were the two most noted of these vessels, and the barbarities practiced in them were such as during the late war at Andersonville and Libby prisons excited general execration. The prisoners were half starved, and foul air and filth of their prisons generated the most contagious diseases, and being without medical aid, the wretched men died by the score daily. The bodies of the victims were taken to the shore and were thrown into hastily dug trenches with a slight covering of earth over them that was soon washed away, leaving the bones exposed so that for many years they were scattered along the beach. A low estimate places the number of deaths resulting from improper treatment on these ships at 11,000. In some instances, the prisoners, preferring death to their misery, contrived to set fire to the vessel in which they were confined, and hundreds died in this manner. The Whitby was then burned, while the Jersey remained anchored in the channel for some months after the close of the war, so infected by disease that no one would approach it. Finally, it rotted and sank. The cruelties began shortly after the capture of New York by the British, and did not entirely cease until the close of the war. The appearance of the land about the Navy Yard has greatly changed of late years. The long war passes directly through the trenches in which the victims were buried, and many of the buildings have been erected over their graves. As the land was leveled off and filled up, fresh remains were discovered, and all of these have been carefully collected. In 1868, the remains of thousands of prisoners were gathered together and interred with appropriate ceremony in Brooklyn, near the Navy Yard, where a temporary monument was erected. Since then, a permanent mausoleum has been constructed at Fort Greene, and all the bones have been placed in it. 5 years ago, a large number of bones were found near the same spot where these last have been obtained. Commodore Upshur is now arranging with the Brooklyn officials for the transfer to them of the bones recently obtained. They were all found in nearly the same spot, heaped together as though the excavating had crossed the trenches, and they lay below a clay subsoil and a strata of beach sand that probably formed the beach during the period of the Revolution. This article originally came from the New York Tribune. These stories came from the great state of Kansas, being reported in the Weekly Kansas Chief of March 15th, 1883. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.